Hey everyone. Hello, happy spring. I hope it's beautiful where you are. How nice that we were not derailed by the eclipse and the earthquake and all the strange things going on in the world right now. I'm about to share with you and read to you my latest essay called Survival of the Weirdest. And it's up on Outspoken, and it goes like this. The subtitle is "The World is So Strange Now. Do those willing to ask strange questions have an advantage?" 2 days ago, I was on the phone with customer service at Citibank. The house in which I was located, a two-story, full basement, three-bedroom, 1,400 square foot house on the highest point of a hill in the Hudson Valley, began to pitch as if we were on a big boat in a major storm at sea. There was a roar like a train hurtling down a track. F, what was that? I confess I shouted, to the alarm of the customer service agent who was located in some other, more stable country. Born and raised in earthquake country, I called down to Brian, who remained at work stoically in the basement, and raced outside. I learned from my phone that the impact was an earthquake from a magnitude 4.8 tremor whose epicenter was in New Jersey. I saw on social media that government advice was for everyone to stay inside. I saw that there were rings of earthquakes around the world. There had been an earthquake in Taiwan last Wednesday with aftershocks that lasted into the week. An earthquake warning was in effect for California after a shock near Susanville last week as well. Unusual, not unusual, hard to say, but I was rattled. Earthquake awareness had been traumatic to many kids who grew up in San Francisco. The horrors of the 1906 quake that leveled much of the city were taught to us in detail in our history classes, and we were often instructed to get under our desks for earthquake drills. I was shaken thus by government advice now for people to stay indoors, as our instructions in my childhood had been to wait under a lintel till the building stopped shaking, and then to get outside into the street, away from houses and structures, and to avoid downed power lines. This advice had saved those who had survived in 1906. I've noticed that government advice in emergencies has recently often been to stay inside in what could be hazardous conditions. When I lived in Israel as a child, for instance, at a time when terrorists really attacked school children, we were told to escape the situation and get outside as quickly as possible, not to shelter in place, as children in the US are told to do in an active shooter situation today. In short, real emergencies feel scarier to me than they used to because I simply do not trust the advice of authorities any longer. Things are too strange blindly to trust the authorities anymore. At the same time, for no good reason that I could see, many states prepared for the eclipse of April 8th by calling out the National Guard and declaring states of emergency. Canada's Niagara region also declared a state of emergency due to tourism during the eclipse, an insane overreaction in multiple states and even nations for a 4-minute event, and one that was not in place during the last such total solar eclipse in 2017. My takeaway is that we are being endlessly conditioned these days, even at our own common sense peril, to remain vulnerable and dependent on the state during emergencies, a term always more expansively defined, and that we are being conditioned to accept nonsensical reasons to declare emergency law, which, recall, is the end game of any tyranny and which suspends civil law. The eclipse came and went. My feed showed that there was heavy spraying, geoengineering, or else plane emissions blocking visibility of it across multiple states in its path, including directly above us in New York State. A blue day became a gray day with a cap of thick haze. Now, post-eclipse, the day is blue again. But indeed, as promised nonetheless during the eclipse, the sky darkened. Brian recorded the event outside on his tripod and camera. Loki, our dog, raced around distraught as the sky went dim. He tried at one point to hide under the tripod. Other people reported that their pets were upset by the unusual situation as well. One image on my social media feed later showed a halo around the blackened sun, ringed with red. Darn, I responded. One more item off Revelation's checklist. But things are getting even weirder than that. A friend and I discussed last night how different the world seems now than it used to seem in our childhood and youth. The world seems to be paper thin now, with events unscrolling before one's eyes like a film reel. Remember how it used to feel so cozy, so solid, so three-dimensional, so human, so loved, so secure? Is the change merely our perception, due perhaps to our time on phones? Or is it that we are located now in a different and weirder place physically in the universe with weirder energies around us? Is it just ourselves aging? Is it the electromagnetic fields proliferating around us due to the expansion of our devices and Wi-Fi? Or is it due to none of the above? Who knows? But you would be a fool to not notice the rapidity with which our very foothold on the planet, our very reality is changing. Some of my friends, techie friends, are asking if we are actually part of a computer simulation. This is the kind of thing one would only ask in the past when one was 16 in someone's basement and under the influence of some recreational drug. But now, while I don't personally believe that this is a possibility, and I think it is unlikely, I don't stop listening. Things have become that weird. The transhumanists, for instance, really want something like this to be the case. And as I've often pointed out, rich and powerful people do not spend time, investment dollars, lawyers, and publicists' fees on ideas that can and will never remotely manifest. Indeed, from Professor Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum on down, global elites are indeed excited about the promise of plugging humans into various forms of digital matrices. MIT's Technology Review really does cover transhumanists who want to live forever. So in the weird world, perhaps it's those of us who ask the weird questions who will end up with the survival advantage. My nemesis, doppelganger, Naomi Klein, mocks my willingness to ask any question, including questions that would have been outlandish in the before times. I feel sorry for her, though. We are in outlandish times now. By my being open to the weird possibility that pharma to her stance of trusting the science and accepting the assurances of government mouthpieces, my loved ones and I are better off now than we would have been if I had not earlier asked weird and then unthinkable questions about the pharma industry. Preppers are routinely mocked by legacy media. Isn't that interesting? Why would being prepared for disaster be ludicrous? Only if you want people scared, helpless, and vulnerable in an emergency. But our families being open to noticing weird new realities, such as the attacks on our food processing plants, we now have 6 months supply of food, a water source, and ammunition in the event of a mass crisis. I notice changes in the sky and am mocked by armies of bots and trolls, no doubt paid by those intent on confirmed geoengineering and its subspecialty solar radiation management. Tinfoil hat alert. But we are living in a weird world now in which disclosed and classified technologies of all kind that would have seemed like pure science fiction 5 years ago really do exist. It used to be seen as positive in American culture for people to be aware and self-reliant. It was seen as an advantage for our hardy forebears out on the prairie or on the ocean in fishing boats or on the farm to notice changes in their environment that could mean illness or health to them and their loved ones, death or life. Excuse me. Now, pardon me, that's Loki. Loki, calm down, honey. He's barking at the bells. Now you are a lunatic if you notice changes in your environment that may be new, that have not yet been blessed by the New York Times opinion or science pages. Sadly, the reality is that now those who refuse to ask questions outside the narrow boundaries of legacy's media permission slip areas are at the greatest risk of not making it in good condition to whatever our fast shifting world will eventually look like. Those of us who are humbling ourselves to ask without ego the most far-fetched spiritual, technical, and metaphysical questions, survival of the weirdest, as you might say, if not survival of the humblest, may be the ones best to endure these times and best positioned to help others survive them. Classic apocalyptic symbols and events these days seem rife. It is hard to ignore them. Is it okay for intellectuals to notice this? The red heifer, identified as a symbol of purification by Yahweh in Numbers 19, has been identified by Jewish and Christian messianic activists in Texas. A perfect red heifer has been transported to Israel and awaits its fate. To many, this is a sign that the time to rebuild the temple has arrived. Things are, in short, getting very symbolic and very spooky. Day by day, they get spookier. A friend told me that serious astrologers explain that the Earth is being bombarded by a massive amount of new energies. You aren't imagining it, she said. From where? I asked. From the universe, she shrugged. I believe it. I feel. Everyone sensible and sensitive feels on edge, estranged in a sense from what had been for so long our solid, stolid planetary home. My friend explained that we are in a time astrologically when our institutions are collapsing one by one to be replaced and rebuilt by 2026. Cool, I thought. Obviously, we are seeing this collapse in every direction in ways that are beyond, as I've often now said publicly, the achievements of normal human history. But also, yikes, will we survive it? Will the changes be good? Quote, for those who embrace the renewal of the world, yes, she explained. I was only slightly comforted. I've been reading, as you know, the Geneva Bible and alongside it, the Bible in Hebrew. For sure, according to these texts, there are cataclysms when humanity wanders astray from the clearly stated and indeed quite reasonable and simple will of God. When humanity deviates from what are explained without ambiguity in those texts as being the moral laws of the universe. Humanity's errant behavior causes, in the Hebrew Bible, natural catastrophes such as the flood and such events as the plagues in Egypt, ranging as they did from frogs to locusts to the deaths of the firstborn. Human behavior caused the destruction of cities such as Sodom and Gomorrah. Sulfur and fire rained down upon those sinful cities. By the same token, humanity's behavior, when it is moral in the Hebrew Bible, causes the world to be in balance, even causes the natural world to be in harmony. The morality of humanity, when it is intact, causes the rain to come in season and the land to flow with milk and honey. When humanity remembers to observe the commandments and to, quote, love the Lord your God, end quote, then people may enjoy the, quote, mountains and valleys that drink rain from heaven and a land, quote, flowing with milk and honey. Quote, observe, therefore, all the commands that I'm giving you today, so that you may have the strength to go in and take over the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, and so that you may live long in the land the Lord swore to your ancestors to give to them and their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey. Oh, we are. I'll do more later. Part 2 soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Yep. See you soon.